probably left last because, if anything, I'm the most controversial in terms of what we mean by research, what we mean by action research, who does the research, and how far can you take it. So this is based on a British Council-funded project in India. And you can see here my collaborator, Professor Rama Mathew from the University of Delhi, worked with us on this. Richard was also involved in this project. Richard, in fact, it strikes me, Richard is involved in everything. But Rama was very much hoping to be here, but she couldn't be here. This presentation is very much a collaboration. So this is the report that's already available on the British Council website, and it's freely downloadable. And I would like to start with this because it's a really good source for those of you who would like to maybe just learn a little bit more about this, because in 20 minutes I will not have the chance to give it justice. The title of it is Children and Teachers as Co-Researchers in Indian Primary Classrooms. So the idea is very much to hand research over to children, and I do understand that that might be too much in some contexts, and it might not be possible. And I have to acknowledge from the start that when we say children as co-researchers, we do talk about a scale. So some teachers were able to take this much further than others, but we identified some core features of working in this way, which involves things like handing over control to the students, encouraging them to decide about things, encouraging them to explore things that interest them within the classroom. So the background is that the project started with a pilot phase. There were 15 volunteers that Rama knew very well from a previous project. And the children that these teachers worked with ranged, the age range from 7 to 14, mainly from state schools. And this is really very important. The last point is very important. That the majority of the children who participated in the pilot phase as well as the main phase were all from lower socioeconomic background, and very many of them were first-generation learners. This term was very new to me when I started to work in India, but it actually means that nobody in your family before you went to school. So very often parents would be illiterate and not really interested in anything to do with school at all. So we saw already in the pilot project that the initial reactions were very good. Teachers said that the activities they tried to do brought the best out of the child. They said that the children really took to this way of working because they enjoyed the fact that their peers were directing activities rather than the teacher. And some teachers already began to reflect that so far I had been a very prescriptive teacher, and suddenly when I'm not, look what happens in my classroom. Some teachers also were extremely surprised that for the first time they asked the children's opinions or views, and the children were saying things that really shocked the teachers. So for example, this one here at the bottom, this teacher asked the learners how to improve English, what do you think? And the children said things like, we have to read the textbook lots and lots of times, which of course is a very, very problematic view of learning. But as a teacher, you would just never know what your learners might think. Okay, so the main study, the teachers from the pilot became mentors. So this is a very similar pattern to some of the other projects we've heard about. The new teachers who joined were from different parts of India, 20 of them, plus 5 mentors from the pilot, and altogether more than 800 children involved, either in the mentors or in the new teachers' classrooms, because several of these teachers taught many classrooms. And then there was a workshop structure, again similar to some of the other projects. The first workshop was in February 2015, when we got together for the first time and we grappled with what it means to involve young learners as researchers. Then in the second workshop, everyone shared their work and we planned the next steps. And initially in the first workshop, only the mentors shared that work and they gave presentations. But by the second workshop, everybody was giving presentations about their work. And finally, we had a third workshop where everyone took the next cycle, presented more of their work, and we also planned for a handbook, and the handbook is going to be also a British Council publication alongside that report that I showed you earlier. We've kind of completed it by now, but it's not ready to be uploaded yet, but soon enough hopefully it will be there. So this is just a picture of the mentors, and this is on the right, Professor Rama Mathew. I know some of you from this audience know her very well. Okay, so here we've got 3 layers of research. First of all, we're talking about children acting as co-researchers. So the understanding is that the children are doing their own research. We've also got teachers undertaking action research in their own classroom with a specific focus on how to encourage children, is it possible, is it feasible, and what can they learn from it. And finally, as facilitators, Rama Mathew and myself were also undertaking research to understand what kind of teacher development can come out of this. Are the teachers learning anything from this whole process? And I couldn't do concentric circles when I did this slide, but if I had been able to, that's how I would have presented it, because as facilitators, of course, we're also interested in the children and what they do, and the teachers are also interested in the children, not just in their own reflections about the action research. Okay, so how does it work in a nutshell? Well, this is a teacher mentor here in one of the workshops, presenting together with her learners. So the learners make choices, they initiate activities, they suggest content, and they attend conferences with us, and they progress on the continuum of becoming researchers. And this is not really the focus of today, but let me just say this much. Of course, the kind of research the children are going to do will be somewhere here. Certainly, we will talk about research with a small r compared to research with a capital R that academics do. But I think the real key to this is this continuum. How far can you push them, or push is probably the wrong word, how far can you encourage them to move along this continuum and to become better and better, possibly more and more sophisticated researchers as they learn more about it. So here is an example of what the children have chosen to do and create and work with. This is a page from a newspaper that they decided to produce, and they organize it all by themselves. Who's going to do the illustrations, who's going to go out and do interviews, and who's going to write up sections in Hindi and in English. And of course, in many classrooms, the children's proficiency in English wasn't good enough to do this sort of thing straight away, but a very kind of organic bilingual approach was adopted. So those who could do it in Hindi did it in Hindi, others translated it, but the interesting thing was that the children were very keen to produce very sophisticated looking English products, so they were actually very keen to do the final newspaper in English. Here's another example where the children decided to create storybook corners and work from storybooks, and eventually when they realized that there are not enough English storybooks that they can have access to, they decided to create their own storybooks, write their own storybooks and share those with them. Now let me just pause a little bit, because some of you might say, okay, so how is this research? This is just sensible, child-centered teaching. And in a way, I accept that, but in many cases, the second cycle or the next step was to do some kind of inquiry into what we've done, what we've learned, how far have we gone, what should we do next. So many of the teachers actually took the next step and organized the children into thinking about what are we learning, shall we, how can we find out what we've learned from this activity. So a lot of the actually learned about questionnaire design. Some of them interviewed each other, some of them did surveys and went around the classroom to ask their peers about their learning experiences. So today I just want to focus on the teacher research element of this, and I'm going to show you some data from the main themes that arose from the interviews. And then very finally I want to just focus on this idea of difficult circumstances, what the teachers in this particular project perceived and understood about difficult circumstances. So in one of the interviews we asked the teachers to place themselves on this continuum, so in terms of how far they managed to involve their learners as researchers, to indicate it from minimum to maximum, if minimum is 1 and maximum is 10. So the average figure you can see was 7.6 here. The second question was, how rigid was your school? Because some schools were much more open to this idea and some schools were not. So they also indicated that quite a few of the schools were not really quite as welcoming as we would have liked for them to work in this way. So some of them had to do it outside their normal classrooms. How integrated the project was with your regular work, so we see that this is sort of around the halfway point. How much your learners' language proficiency improvement, how much did it improve? So you can see that the figure is quite high, but by far the highest figure we've got is for your own development. So the teachers all felt that they learned a great deal in this project. So these are the main themes, changing views about teaching and learning, and I think this chimes really quite strongly with what some of the other projects have found. Teachers would have said things like the children are the best teachers who will teach me how to reach them. Respecting the learner and giving him space is the most important thing I learned. When I participate in the learning with students, when I was part of the learning, they perform better because they realize that I'm learning as well. The second big theme was the realization in terms of how much change actually occurred in the learners themselves. So one of the teachers at the end said, my children now will not accept anything ready-made. They will want to do things for themselves. In my class, the children themselves will not let me stop because they've gained confidence and they have also become more proficient in English. The children have more choice and voice and listen to me much better, and the quality of the learning has got much better in my class. And this really inspires me. And finally, the confidence levels have increased. Some can only do bilingual text, some can only do Hindi, some can only draw, but they're all eager to participate and progress according to their levels. So, the teachers also reflected quite a bit about how much their own understanding about research and their own development occurred to them when they thought about how they develop. So in the workshops we also spent some time looking at some articles that have been written about children as co-researchers and researchers, and we spent a bit of time discussing how these articles are relevant or maybe not, what they're doing in practice. Does that kind of have any connection with what they read? And many of the teachers commented that with all the reading, I started to understand and do things differently. And many of them have moved forward as well in their own journey towards more formal understanding of research. In fact, just like in Harry's case, I didn't know about this, the last few points that we made, several of the teachers in this cohort are now thinking about doing their master's and their PhD studies somewhere in a university. So this kind of continuous movement towards more sophisticated or maybe more formal ways of doing research is certainly something that may organically come out of projects. This one is also a really powerful one in my view, because this teacher says the most important thing for me is whenever I listen to things like a seminar, I feel now that I have got words to my expression. I love this quote because it actually means having read all the stuff, having been part of the discussions, I'm confident now to stand up in a seminar, in a conference, and talk about my work because I've got the words to my expression. And finally, one of the teachers said, you know, whenever I introduce new ideas in my classroom, I never documented this consciously, but now I understood that as part of research, this is really important, so I'm definitely doing that. And finally, just two quotes about how important it was to work together in a non-hierarchical setup. So here, this person says, in this project, we came together, very different fields and status, and we all came together, and the comfort with which I found here, that gave me the motivation to speak out and participate. There's no hierarchy here, and we are at the comfort level with someone who could have been hierarchical. Probably this is what we need to take to our classes. So I think that because of the action research that these teachers engaged in, and because of the specific focus of the project, these two came together very powerfully and produced the professional development. If the action research didn't have this specific focus, I think possibly we may have seen slightly different reflections, because I think having to sort of try and hand over things to the children created a big space that allowed for development to take place, if you like, in an accelerated manner. Having listened to all the other projects, I think changing your ideas about teaching and learning was mentioned in other projects as well. But in this project, maybe it just sort of happened really quickly because of this very sharp focus on the learners. Difficult circumstances. So at the beginning of the project, the teachers talked about difficult circumstances, and I myself visited classrooms, even though I only went to Delhi. I saw classrooms with no doors, no windows, and there were lots and lots of teachers from parts of India where there's no electricity, of course, and not enough books, not enough, certainly no computers, of course. But the two main aspects of difficult circumstances that were mentioned again and again at the beginning was lack of material resources, and also very, very low SES, so very, very low socioeconomic status. So first generation learners. Many of the teachers told me anecdotes like the parents don't care, the children live in slums, the parents won't take any interest in the education of the children. These children will end up leaving school very early. So there was a lot of that, and also a lot of issues about lack of resources, of course, that we have no money, we've got no books, we've got no computers. Although I must say that some of the schools were much better resourced, we did have a variety of different schools in there. Okay, so my very final 3 slides, and I know I have to rush. What was very interesting for me was that the teachers changed their minds completely about what it meant to have difficult circumstances. And I think because this space has been created and control has been given over to the children suddenly started opening up, recommending things, deciding things. The teachers learned a lot about their own learners, and they learned that a good bond between the teacher and the learners was an extremely important thing. So for example, one teacher said, I do writing in English, but not just for writing English sake. It helps me to understand them better. It helps me to have better relationships, because it's not just about English, it's about their lives, and it's about a good bond between us. And many of them also commented on overcoming the socioeconomic differences. So this is a typical quote. Now I can create a good learning environment where everyone is involved, and even though we have very different socioeconomic background, we can relate to each other well. And finally, under-resourced yet rich classrooms. This one says, earlier I used to think that not having resources in my classroom is a big obstacle to me. But when I asked the children what they wanted to do, they had lots of ideas. And now I realize that I have a lot of resources in my class. I have the children, they bring their ideas, scrap materials, and their imagination. And this time the children are involved and they make decisions and everyone's involved. Okay, my very last thought, just as I was preparing this presentation, I came across in a modern language journal an article about how to train teachers for 21st century difficult circumstances. And one of the big ideas is that teachers perhaps should be given training and input about values and how to prepare children as better citizens, focusing on social justice and investing into, personally investing into their classrooms. And it just occurred to me that the teachers who participated in this project didn't need any preparation or training. It sort of emerged organically from their classrooms. So there would be a lot more to say, but I stopped there because I've been, rang out. Thank you very much.
Harry, questions for Harry or comments? Harry, okay. Any questions or comments for Harry or for Annamaria? Anyone would like to comment, or if not, then on the agenda overall, I suppose. So we just have 2 or 3 minutes. Any comments or questions that you'd like to share? Yes.
This question's for Harry. Hi. I'm wondering, and actually it's probably for you both, because I think there's a lot of great lessons that have been learned in both of these activities. And do we have an avenue or a way to share the successes and maybe create a toolkit or a framework for these kinds of projects to be replicated in different areas? Because I'm writing a note saying, ask Harry to summarize it in a paragraph. So I guess I'm just wondering is, how can we take this amazing resource that you've developed independently and really start pushing it out there to other environments? And I apologize because I missed the first half of this lovely session.
Well, we are exploring the possibilities for funding to be able to get all of that together and make sense of it. Eric, my colleague in Cameroon, and then the teachers themselves are beginning to put all of that together in a way that makes sense to them, and I think that's even more important. So what we've got schemes of work that they've developed together, lesson plans for specific lessons that they have developed, and also this bank of spoken data that we recorded, which we would eventually make sense of. They just recently created a Facebook page where they've been putting some information. It's still a closed page at the moment, but they themselves are putting information they find relevant for themselves, especially videos and comments and schemes of work. But we are exploring opportunities and also talking to an inspector at the Ministry of Secondary Education in charge of computer sciences, who's offered to create an online platform which he would call Open Educational Resources for Cameroon. So we hope that will work and we'll be able to share.
Like I say, that on the back of your sheet is WF Festival, and actually our idea here is to try to share, including penalties through. Harry talked about a plenary of teachers involved. We're very much hoping to video that, and to somehow, we don't know how yet, to share it. We're more interested in finding that out. So I think it's the first time we're really, us in the same room together, but we have been this isn't some kind of conspiracy, it's just we've gradually come together sharing these things ourselves, feeling we want to share more widely, generally. So please do write comments on the paper if you'd like to, any suggestions that you have. We're going to have a little meeting after this of the, what we call the steering committee of this festival, and some people here involved. But we'd also very encourage you to stay on if you'd like to just take part in that discussion about the festival in this room. Final question or comment from anything being told me to leave the room?
I think just a message for Rama.
Message for Rama.
Yes.
I thought I would see her, and that's one reason why I actually came to this session. I was with her when she was doing her MPhil and I was doing my PGDTE. So I haven't seen her since I left India, and that was in the 70s. Since I did that. So I was very much excited, but I'm really, really proud to know that Rama has gone from where she was. So that's my personal.
I'll pass that on. She was going to come actually. It looked like she was going to come, but then there was an issue with the funding.
Yeah, my name is Aparajita. She would know me.
Okay.
But to the name is
So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming.